All right, what's up, everyone? So, in this video, I'm going to be talking about my experience getting an online computer science degree, the pros and cons, and whether or not I think it's worth it for someone in your situation. And yeah, without further ado, we can really begin. First, I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day for clicking on my video and watching my video. All right, so my situation was basically that I was doing a crim degree and I was coming up on my last semester. And at the same time, I was also working part time. Now, given that I had these two, scheduled commitments where I had to be at class at a certain time and also had to be at my job at a certain time, it was difficult to add on another scheduled commitment on top of this. So that was the first reason and one of the biggest reasons I decided to pursue an online program. Another reason I decided to pursue an online program is because I wanted to move at a faster pace. What I mean by that is a lot of online courses have the option of being self paced compared to in person courses, which are not self paced. And if you're not familiar with what self paced means, I'll touch on that in just a second. So, now let's go over some of the pros and cons of attending the online program and my overall thoughts on it. So, the first pro is that it was self paced, right? So, to elaborate on this, basically, if you go to an in person university, usually courses have a set start date, set end date, and you can't complete the course any faster. You have to adhere to that. With a self paced course, there's basically just an end date. Or excuse me, there's of course there's a start date when you start, but there's basically an end date, and it's a very flexible end date. So they'll give you an end date, say, you have 6 months to complete this course, right? And within that end date, you don't like you can take the whole 6 months if you want, but if you feel comfortable 1 month in and you've done all the assignments, you're ready to take the exam, you can finish that course in 1 month. So the end date is very, very flexible. And that was really good for me because I was like giving it my all. I was working hard at this degree and I was ready to take the exam sometimes 1 month in. So if had I gone to like just a in-person university, I would have still had to wait the 3 months until the final exam came. But with this, I was able to take the exam 1 month in, knock out the course, and that was it. So it really helped me finish courses at a faster pace and get my degree quicker. The other pro is that it was very flexible. So I had mentioned I had a lot of commitments that actually required me to, be at a location at a certain time and, start and end time. So there's like the commute time and a bunch of other things you got to account for there. So it was difficult to add on some more commitments where I had to be physically present at a location. The flexibility that this degree offered me, the online degree, was incredible. And it goes beyond just working around the other commitments I had. There were times where I would be at a job interview, for example, and employers often want to know that if you're going to take on a full-time job and you're going to take on school, how are you going to manage that? And they want to make sure that, you'll be able to balance those two and you won't have to, for example, compromise work or compromise school. And I was able to answer this question in interviews fairly easily. I would say, hey, my degree is online. This means courses are self paced. I can, take a little bit longer with them if I need it. I can do them a little bit faster. And also, I don't have to be at like a lecture hall at a certain time. And I have the option really to, take more courses or less courses, however I want. So my time is very, very flexible. And I can take advantage of that flexibility to work around my work schedule to make sure that my work is not compromised in terms of quality of work, and also that my schoolwork isn't compromised. So this gives you a lot of advantages in the work, life as well. But also, if you're someone who has a family and has a bunch of other commitments, this flexibility is great because in times where your commitments have slowed down, maybe kids are going back to school, so kids aren't going to be at home as much. You can take more courses. And at times where kids are going to be at home, they're on summer vacation, whatever, you can take less courses at that time and focus more on family. So that flexibility is incredible. The last pro I want to touch on is the fact that I feel the online degree has no lack of reputation, right? And here's what I mean by that. So, a lot of times when I talk to people and I try to understand why they wouldn't choose an online school, one of the reasons that comes up is an online degree is not a real degree. And my answer to that is, well, the piece of paper that I have says I have a Bachelor of Computer Science from this university. And that same university also has an in person program. And the people who get the degree in person, their degree says the exact same thing, meaning if you can put our degrees side to side, they look identical. So my piece of paper looks the exact same as the in person, student's piece of paper, So the credentials are identical. I feel like there's no lack of reputation, and to call it not a real degree just doesn't make sense because those degrees are literally identical. And also, there's just a lot less stigma, I feel, with this online degree completion work. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of times in my, in the tech industry at least, which is where I work, there were times in interviews I would just tell the employer, like, hey, I'm doing an online university, I'm still, a student, and this is how I'm managing my coursework, et cetera, et cetera. And I never once felt that someone judged me or, said to me that, hey, I feel your credentials because they're online are less than an in-person credential. I always felt that my credentials were respected just as much as an in-person, degree or coursework. So, I think that's a big pro, that the credentials you're getting with all this flexibility are just as valid as the credential you will get had you gone to the university in person. Now, let's talk about some of the cons here, right? So, one con, and probably the biggest con with the online degree, is that it's more difficult than an in person degree. Now, this is my opinion, so I guess it's a little bit subjective, right? But had you told me this before I started the online program, I would have said no way. Because you think about online, it's like it's so flexible, you get so many benefits. It's like no way this can be more difficult than an in person program. But the major benefits you get with the in person program are the support system. You have students you can reach out to for help, like, hey, I don't understand this question. Do you want to maybe go to the library, study for an hour or two? There's professors you can reach out to for help and get real time communication. And a lot of universities offer like tutoring services and other, services. Maybe there's like a club that meets up, like a computer science club, and you can learn from them as well. So there's all this support system, which is basically lost in the online university, in my experience. So with the online university, there was a student forum, right, where students could, chat and communicate, but no one used it. And as far as talking to professors, there was no real time communication. You could email a professor, and they would respond in 24 hours if you're lucky, and usually it was more so like 2 to 3 days where you'd get a response. So let's run through an example, right? Say you're in an in-person university and you have a question that you don't understand. You would go up to the professor, say, hey, I don't understand this question. They would explain it. You would, take that feedback, maybe ask another question, or if you understood the question at that point, you'd be done. Now, compare that to the online where you email the professor with a question. They respond with 24 hours if you're lucky, usually 2 to 3 days. And by that point, when you're reading that question again, you have to get your brain, up to speed. It's like, why did I ask this question? Oh yeah, this is why. And then, you get yourself up to speed. You read the answer, and then you give the feedback and ask a further follow-up question if you have any. Now, this process of understanding one question through email can take upwards of 2 weeks, whereas had you done this in person, would have taken you maybe 10 minutes. And, of course, when you're new to a course, you're going to have way more than one question. So it's just so difficult to do that communication, right? So I would say that in online, you really have to be independent. You're going to have to find creative ways to find answers to questions, whether that's reaching out to a tutor in person, another online tutor, or just finding these, resources like Coursera courses or some other course that's going to help you understand the course material of the university course that you're taking a little bit better. So you're really going to have to get creative, and online is super, super independent, which makes understanding tough concepts a little bit more difficult than going to an in person university. And the other thing that I noticed with the online courses was there was limited information on exams. So when I was attending my crim course in person, for example, my teacher would usually give me some sort of final exam review booklet, which would have questions similar to the final exam. And they would also tell you, hey, I expect you to study like this chapter, and this information. Now, with the computer science program that I was doing online, this was never the case. I never got any sort of final exam review booklet. Most of the time, when I would ask a professor, like, hey, what can I expect on this final exam? There were times where I got a response that basically said I'm not allowed to share that information, or they would just give me, chapter one to the end and be like, review the whole book. Like, the answers would often be ambiguous and rarely useful. So you basically would study what you think you need to study, cross your fingers, take the exam, and hope for the best. And that can be quite challenging. So that was another con I noticed with the online program. Another thing I noticed is there's unique rules around passing, and here's what I mean. In my experience with the in-person university, the rules around passing are fairly simple. Your cumulative grade needs to be above a 50 or above a certain percentage. With the online university, some of them will have unique rules. So one university I know has a rule that you have to get over 50 in every single thing that you do, meaning assignments and exams. You could have a 99% in all the coursework, but if you fail one assignment, you fail the course. And the university that I personally attended, they had the rule that you needed to have a cumulative grade over 50 and you had to pass the final exam. Meaning, if you went into the course with a 99% and you failed the final exam, you failed the course. So these are some things to watch out for, and you should double check with the university that you're signing up with what their rules are around passing to make sure it's something that you're comfortable with. Now, the last thing to mention, at least with my program, was there was limited course availability. So the whole computer science degree, it required 120 credits, and I would say about one third ish of the requirements for the program were not offered in an online format by my university. So I had to either reach out to another university that was in person, try to take the courses there, or reach out to another online university, take the courses there, and then transfer credit. And that can be a little bit, a little bit not ideal. It makes the workflow just scattered, right? You're reaching out to all these different universities, paying application fees at these other universities. Whereas if you take the program in person, the whole program is offered at that one university, and you never have to transfer credit unless you want to. But with this program, it wasn't optional. There was courses that they just straight up didn't offer online, and you had to transfer credit or go to the campus and take that course in person. So that was the last con that I would say there. Now, my overall experience, I am happy with my decision, right? So currently I'm working as a software engineer at a tech company that, I'm happy to be working at, and it has paid off for me, hugely. So at the end of the day, despite all these cons, the pros far outweigh the cons for me. I'm happy with my decision. And if I could go back, 2 years or however much, and make the decision again, like, hey, would I pursue this degree 100% without hesitation? So that's really my experience. I hope that helps some of you out who are making the decision currently. If you have any questions, or you want to inquire a little bit more about my experience, if that would help you, make your experience a little bit easier, please feel free to ask. Always happy to help. And that's really all there is to this video. So thank you so much for watching. And again, thank you for taking the time out of your day to click on this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and talk to you later. Peace.